The transport ship landed on Vorath Prime just as the twin suns began to rise over the purple mountains. Inside the ship, 12 humans sat in silence, watching through the small windows as the Galactic Military Academy came into view. It was massive, built from black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Towers rose into the orange sky like fingers reaching for something they could never touch. Cadet Sarah Chen pressed her face closer to the window. She was 23 years old, small in build, with black hair pulled back so tight it made her eyes look sharper than they were. Back on Earth, she had been the top graduate of the United Nations military program. Here, she was nothing, just another human, just another soft, pink creature trying to prove that her species belonged among the stars. "Looks friendly," said the man sitting next to her. His name was James Morrison, tall and broad with skin the color of dark earth. He was smiling, but Chen could see the tension in his jaw. "It looks like it wants to eat us," Chen replied. Morrison laughed quietly. "Everything out here wants to eat us. Haven't you noticed?" The ship touched down with a gentle bump. The doors opened, and the smell of Vorath Prime rushed in, something like burning metal mixed with flowers that had died a long time ago. Chen stood up, adjusted her uniform, and walked out with the others. They were met by chaos. The landing area was filled with hundreds of cadets from dozens of different species. Chen saw creatures with scales and creatures with fur. She saw beings that walked on 2 legs and beings that walked on 8. Some had wings folded against their backs. Others had tentacles instead of arms. One species appeared to be made entirely of living rock, their bodies grinding and clicking as they moved, and all of them were staring at the humans. Chen kept her eyes forward and her back straight. She had been warned about this. Humans were new to the Galactic Compact, having joined only 5 years ago. They were the youngest species to ever gain membership, and they had done it in the strangest way possible. They had talked their way in. Every other species in the Compact had earned their place through war. They had fought, bled, and conquered until the other members had no choice but to accept them. But humans had arrived with open hands and clever words. They had offered trade agreements and cultural exchanges. They had solved disputes between species that had been fighting for centuries. They had made themselves useful. And before anyone really understood what was happening, they were in. Many species respected this. Many others did not. "Humans!" a voice roared across the landing area. "Form up!" Chen turned toward the voice and felt her stomach drop. The creature walking toward them was a Vorn, one of the most feared warrior species in the known galaxy. He stood 7 feet tall, covered in scales the color of hammered bronze. His eyes were yellow with vertical slits for pupils, and when he opened his mouth, she could see rows of teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. He wore the uniform of a drill sergeant, decorated with medals that told the story of a long and violent career. "I am Drill Sergeant Kravith," he said, stopping in front of the human group. His voice was like gravel being crushed. "I have trained warriors from over 100 species. I have sent soldiers into battles that you cannot imagine. I have watched the weak die and the strong survive." He leaned down until his face was close to Chen's. His breath smelled like raw meat, and I have never seen anything as pathetic as what stands before me now. Chen did not move, did not blink, did not let her expression change even slightly. Kravith pulled back, his secondary eyelids flickering in what might have been amusement or might have been disgust. "Humans, the species that talked its way to the stars. Do you know what that makes you? It makes you cowards. It makes you weak. It makes you everything that a warrior should not be." He began to walk along the line of human cadets, examining each one like a farmer looking at livestock he planned to slaughter. Small bodies, thin skin, no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. He stopped in front of Morrison. "Tell me, human, what exactly do you think you can offer to the greatest military academy in the galaxy?" Morrison kept his eyes forward. "We learn fast, Sergeant." "Learn fast?" Kravith made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The Kreth learn fast. The Vorics learn fast. They also have natural armor and the ability to see in complete darkness. What do humans have? Determination, Sergeant. Determination." This time Kravith definitely laughed. "Every species has determination. Every species thinks they are special. Every species believes they will be the ones to survive." He walked back to stand in front of the entire group. "I have watched many species come to this academy with determination in their hearts. I have watched most of them leave in medical transports or body bags. He pointed at a building in the distance, a squat structure that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated windows. That is your barracks. You will sleep there. You will eat there. You will spend every moment that you are not training there. And you will stay away from the other cadets. Chen felt a flash of anger but kept it locked away. May I ask why, Sergeant? Kravith looked at her for a long moment. Because the other cadets are warriors. They have earned the right to train alongside each other. Humans have earned nothing. He turned and began to walk away. Report to Training Field 7 at dawn. Do not be late. I do not tolerate lateness. He was gone before any of them could respond. The humans stood in silence for a moment. Then Morrison let out a long breath. Well, that could have gone better. It will get worse, Chen said quietly. He wants to break us. He wants to prove that humans don't belong here. Then what do we do? Chen picked up her bag and started walking toward the barracks. We don't break. That night, as the others slept, Chen stood at the window of the barracks and looked out at the academy. She could see other species moving in the darkness. Their bodies adapted to the night in ways that human bodies were not. She could hear sounds of combat training from somewhere far away, roars and screams and the crash of weapons against armor. She thought about home. She thought about the long history of her species. She thought about all the things that humans had done to survive. All the darkness that lived in their blood. All the violence that they had learned to lock away behind smiles and handshakes and polite conversation. Kravith thought humans were weak because they had chosen diplomacy over war. He did not understand that diplomacy had not been a choice. It had been a necessity. It had been the only thing standing between humanity and its own extinction. Chen watched the moons rise over the purple mountains and made herself a promise. She would not show them what humans really were. Not unless she had no other choice. She hoped she would never have to make that choice. 3 months passed on Vorith Prime. The twin suns rose and fell. The purple mountains watched in silence. And the humans refused to break. Kravith had tried everything. He had made them run through acid swamps while the other cadets watched and laughed. He had forced them to train in gravity 5 times stronger than Earth normal, until their muscles screamed and their bones felt like they might snap. He had denied them sleep, denied them food, denied them any comfort that might make their lives easier. The humans endured it all. What made Kravith truly angry was not their endurance. Many species could endure hardship. What made him angry was how they did it. They helped each other. When one human fell, another would pick them up. When one human struggled, the others would gather around and share the burden. They moved like a single organism, like parts of one body, working together to survive. It was unnatural. It was wrong. It was not how warriors behaved. The incident with Morrison had been the worst. During a training exercise on the Academy's moon, Morrison had fallen badly and broken his arm. The bone had come through the skin, white and sharp against his dark flesh. Any other species would have left him behind. The exercise was timed. There were penalties for failure. The logical thing, the warrior thing, was to complete the mission and send medical help later. Chen had not hesitated. She had lifted Morrison onto her back and carried him 6 kilometers through swamps that burned their skin with every step. She had finished the exercise dead last, covered in chemical burns, with Morrison unconscious and bleeding against her shoulder. Kravith had been waiting at the finish line. You failed, he told her. You could have completed the mission. Instead, you chose to save one broken soldier. Chen had looked at him with eyes that showed nothing. We don't leave people behind, Sergeant. Then you will never be warriors. Maybe not, she had replied. But we'll be human. Now, 3 months later, Kravith stood before the assembled cadets of the Academy. 400 warriors from dozens of species filled the Great Hall, their bodies casting strange shadows in the blue light that came from crystals embedded in the walls. The humans stood together in the back, 12 small figures surrounded by creatures that could tear them apart without effort. Tomorrow, Kravith announced, we begin the combat trials. A ripple of excitement moved through the crowd. The combat trials were the most important test at the Academy. Species fought against species in full contact battles. There were few rules. Serious injuries were common. Deaths were not unheard of. Each species will face opponents selected by the training staff. Kravith continued, the matches will test your skills, your courage, and your willingness to do what is necessary to win. His yellow eyes moved through the crowd until they found the humans. And humans, you will face the Kreth. The hall went silent. Chen felt the cadets around her shift nervously. She understood why. The Kreth were nightmares made flesh. They came from a high-gravity world where everything was trying to kill everything else. They had 8 limbs, each one ending in claws that could cut through metal. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that could stop most weapons. They were faster, stronger, and more vicious than almost any other species at the Academy. They had hospitalized cadets from warrior species that had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Against humans, with their soft skin and fragile bones. No restrictions, Kraveth said, and Chen could hear the satisfaction in his voice. I require brutality, cadets. Show me what your species is capable of. Hold nothing back. He was looking directly at Chen when he said it. She met his gaze and nodded once. That night, the Kreth cadets gathered in their barracks to prepare. Their leader was a massive creature named Thex, larger than the others, with scars across his armored hide that told stories of battles won. He sharpened each of his 8 claws with a stone that sparked in the darkness. The humans will be easy, one of his warriors said. They are soft. They will break quickly. Do not be overconfident, Thex replied, though his voice suggested he did not believe his own warning. They have survived 3 months of training. They are tougher than they look. Tough enough to survive us? Thex made a clicking sound with his mandibles, the Kreth version of laughter. Nothing is tough enough to survive us. In the human barracks, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Chen had gathered the others around her. Morrison was there, his arm healed but still stiff. The rest of the human cadets formed a circle, their faces serious in the dim light. He's setting us up, Morrison said. The Kreth will destroy us, and if by some miracle we win, we'll look like savages. Either way, we fail. He thinks he's giving us an impossible choice. Another cadet agreed. Be brutal and prove we're dangerous animals, or hold back and get slaughtered. Chen was silent for a long moment. She looked at each of her fellow humans, these people who had become her family over the past 3 months. She thought about everything they had endured together. She thought about what was waiting for them tomorrow. He's not giving us an impossible choice, she finally said. He's giving us permission. The others stared at her. We were told to integrate, Chen continued. To be diplomatic. To represent humanity well. We've spent 3 months being polite, being controlled, being everything the Compact wants us to be. She paused. Kraveth just gave us a direct order to stop. Sarah, Morrison said carefully. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we follow orders. Chen's voice was flat and cold in a way that made the others uncomfortable. He wants brutality. He wants to see what humans are capable of. Tomorrow, we show him. I'm talking about being honest. Chen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the moons hung in the sky like watching eyes. The galaxy thinks we talked our way to the stars because we're weak. They don't understand. They don't know why we really chose diplomacy. She turned back to face the group. They don't know what we had to stop ourselves from being. What we still are. Underneath all the smiles and handshakes and polite words, the barracks was silent. Every human in the room knew what she meant. They had all learned the history. They had all studied what their species had done to itself before it learned to be kind. The kindness isn't who we are, Chen said. The kindness is what we built to contain what we are. And tomorrow Kraveth is going to find out what happens when we let it out. Morrison looked at the others, then back at Chen. Are you sure about this? No, she admitted. But I know one thing for certain. If we go in there tomorrow trying to be diplomatic, trying to be controlled, the Kreth will kill us. We don't have the bodies for a fair fight. She smiled, and there was something old and dark in that smile. So we're not going to fight fair. She began to tell them what they were going to do. Outside, the wind howled across the academy grounds, and somewhere in the darkness, something screamed. None of the humans even looked up. They had heard worse screams. They had made worse screams. And tomorrow, they would make them again. The morning of the combat trials came with a blood-red sunrise. The twin suns of Vorth Prime rose together, painting the sky in colors that looked like wounds. Chen stood at the window of the barracks and watched the light spread across the academy grounds. She had not slept. None of them had. Behind her, the other humans were preparing. But they were not preparing in the way that the academy had taught them. They were preparing in a different way, an older way, a way that their ancestors had used long before humanity had ever dreamed of reaching the stars. Morrison sat in the corner, drawing lines on his face with a dark paste made from crushed plants found in the Academy gardens. The lines were not random. They followed patterns that humans had used for thousands of years, patterns meant to frighten enemies, to show that the person wearing them had moved beyond normal rules, beyond normal limits. Other cadets were doing the same. Some drew designs on their arms, others painted symbols on their chests. A woman named Rodriguez was whispering something under her breath. Words in a language so old that no one remembered what they meant anymore. Chen looked at herself in the small mirror mounted on the wall. She had painted 2 dark lines under her eyes, sweeping back toward her temples like the marks of some predatory bird. The face that looked back at her was not the face of a diplomat. It was not the face of someone who smiled and shook hands and talked about peace. It was something else entirely. Chen. Morrison's voice came from behind her. It's time. She nodded and turned to face the group. 12 humans stood before her, painted and ready. They looked different now. They stood differently. They breathed differently. Something had changed in the night. Something that could not be put back into its box easily. Remember what we discussed, Chen said. The Kreth are bigger than us, stronger than us, faster than us. In a fair fight, we lose. She paused. So we don't fight fair. We fight like humans. We fight like our ancestors fought when they were surrounded by predators on every side, and had nothing but stones and sticks, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to survive. And if we go too far? Someone asked. Chen was quiet for a moment. Then we go too far. Kravith wanted to see what we're capable of. He's going to find out. She moved toward the door. Let's go. The combat arena was the largest building in the Academy complex. It was a massive dome made of transparent material that showed the red sky above. The floor was covered in sand that had been imported from a dozen different worlds, mixed together to create a surface that would be equally unfamiliar to all species. Viewing platforms rose around the edges, already filled with cadets and instructors who had come to watch. When the humans entered, the arena fell silent. They walked in formation, their painted faces showing no expression, their movements synchronized in a way that seemed almost unnatural. The other species watched them with confusion. This was not how humans usually behaved. These creatures were different somehow, changed in a way that was hard to define but impossible to ignore. The Kreth were already waiting in the center of the arena. Thex stood at the front of his warriors, his 8 claws fully extended, his armored body gleaming under the lights. He made his clicking laugh when he saw the humans. They have painted themselves, he said to his warriors. How charming, like children playing at war. Chen heard him but did not respond. She led her group to their starting position and turned to face the Kreth. Her eyes found Thex's eyes and held them. Something in her gaze made his clicking laughter stop. Kravith walked to the center of the arena, standing between the 2 groups. The rules are simple, he announced, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the dome. Fight until one side cannot continue. Killing is permitted, but not required. Surrender will be accepted. He looked at the humans, and Chen could see the anticipation in his yellow eyes. Begin. He stepped back. For a moment, nothing happened. The Kreth spread out, moving to surround the smaller human group. Thex advanced slowly, confidently, his claws making soft clicking sounds against his armored legs. You should surrender now, he said. It will be less painful. Chen did not answer with words. She answered with movement. Later, the other cadets would try to describe what they saw. They would struggle to find the right words. The humans did not fight like soldiers. They did not fight like warriors. They fought like something from a nightmare. Something that had been sleeping for a very long time and had just woken up hungry. Chen moved first, but it did not feel like movement. It felt like she simply stopped being in one place and started being in another. One moment she was standing with her group, the next moment she was inside Thex's guard, her hands finding the weak points in his armor that her eyes had been studying for 3 months. The Kreth were strong. The Kreth were fast. But they were used to fighting creatures that fought the way they did. Direct attacks, displays of power, predictable patterns of violence. Humans did not fight that way. Chen did not try to overpower Thex. She did not need to. She found the soft spots beneath his armor plates and drove her fingers into them. She found the joints where his limbs connected and twisted them in directions they were not meant to go. She moved around his attacks like water flowing around stones, always finding the places where he was weakest, always striking where it would hurt the most. Thex roared and swung at her with 4 of his claws. She ducked under the attack and came up inside his reach again. Her elbow found the nerve cluster beneath his mandibles. Her knee found the joint of his front leg. Her teeth found his throat. She did not bite to kill. She bit to show him that she could. Around her, the other humans were doing the same. Morrison, despite his recently healed arm, had brought down 2 Kreth by targeting their eyes, the one part of them that was not protected by armor. Rodriguez was on the back of another, her arms wrapped around its neck in a chokehold that should not have worked against a creature 3 times her size, but somehow did. The sound that filled the arena was horrible. It was the sound of the Kreth screaming. They were not used to screaming. They were not used to pain. They were predators from a world of predators, and they had never met anything that could make them afraid. Now they were afraid. Thex fell to his knees, and Chen was on him immediately. She broke 3 of his limbs with quick, efficient movements, not to cause pain, but to make sure he could not fight back. Then she stood over him, her painted face looking down at his, and she made a sound. It was not a battle cry. It was not a roar. It was something lower, something from deep in the throat, something that humans had been making since before they were humans. It was the sound that their ancestors had made when they stood over fallen predators on the ancient plains of Earth. It was the sound of absolute dominance. The arena was silent. The last Kreth fell. The humans stood in the center of the sand, breathing hard, covered in blue Kreth blood. They did not look triumphant. They did not celebrate. They just stood there, their painted faces showing nothing, their eyes showing everything. Kraveth stepped forward slowly. He had trained warriors from over 100 species. He had seen violence in forms that would break most minds. He had never seen anything like this. "Medical teams," he called out, his voice strange and quiet. "Get the Kreth to the medical bay." Teams rushed onto the sand, carrying stretchers and medical equipment. They moved around the humans carefully, giving them wide space, as if afraid to get too close. Chen watched them work. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, not from exhaustion, from the effort of stopping. She looked up at the viewing platforms, at the hundreds of cadets from dozens of species who were staring down at her in silence. She saw the fear in their eyes. She saw the understanding dawning. Humans had not talked their way to the stars because they were weak. They had talked their way to the stars because they knew what would happen if they did not. Kraveth walked toward her. He stopped a few feet away, studying her painted face, her bloodied hands, her eyes that still held something ancient and terrible. "This," he said slowly, "is what you've been hiding." Chen did not answer. She was too busy trying to remember how to be human again. It was harder than she had expected. The medical bay was filled with the sounds of Kreth warriors in pain. Machines beeped and hummed as doctors from a dozen species worked to repair broken limbs and torn flesh. Thex lay on a bed in the corner, 3 of his limbs immobilized, his eyes staring at the ceiling with an expression that no one had ever seen on a Kreth face before. Fear. Real fear. The kind that does not go away. Outside the medical bay, the academy had changed. Word of what happened in the arena had spread through the complex like fire through dry grass. Cadets from every species were talking about it in whispers, in the corridors, in the training rooms, in the mess halls. The story grew with each telling, becoming bigger and stranger and more terrible. The humans had not just won. They had become something else. They had transformed into creatures that the galaxy had never seen before, or perhaps had seen, long ago, in nightmares that species tried not to remember. Chen sat alone in the washroom of the human barracks. The water in the sink was running, slowly turning from blue to clear as she scrubbed the Kreth blood from her hands. Her reflection looked back at her from the mirror, still painted, still marked, still showing the face of something that scared her. She had known what she was doing when she walked into that arena. She had made a choice to open a door that humans spent centuries learning to keep closed. What she had not expected was how easy it would be, how natural it would feel, how much she would want to keep going. The door opened behind her. She saw Kraveth's reflection appear in the mirror, his bronze scales catching the harsh light, his yellow eyes fixed on her with an expression she could not read. "You should not be in here, Sergeant," she said without turning around. and you should not have been able to do what you did." He walked closer, his heavy footsteps echoing on the tile floor. "The Kreth are among the most dangerous species in the Compact. They have destroyed entire military units from races with centuries of warrior tradition. And your people, your soft, small, clawless people, broke them in minutes." Chen turned off the water. She did not turn around. "You told us to hold nothing back. I did not expect you to have anything to hold back." Kraveth was directly behind her now. She could smell him, that raw meat scent, mixed with something sharper, something that might have been uncertainty. 3 months I watched your people. 3 months I pushed you, tested you, tried to make you break. You never showed any of this. You never gave us permission before." "Permission?" Kraveth made a sound that was almost a laugh. "You needed permission to fight?" Chen finally turned to face him. The paint was smeared now, running with water, making her look like something half-transformed. "We needed permission to stop pretending." She walked past him to the small bench against the wall. Her body was tired in a way that went deeper than muscles and bones. She sat down and stared at her hands, human hands, soft and pink and fragile, hands that had just broken an armored predator. "Do you know the history of my species, Sergeant?" she asked. Kraveth leaned against the doorframe. "I know you are new to space travel. I know you achieved faster-than-light technology approximately 100 years ago. I know you joined the Compact through diplomacy rather than conquest. That's the official history. The clean history." Chen looked up at him. "Would you like to know the real history?" He was silent, waiting. "Humans evolved on a planet called Earth," Chen began. "It was a dangerous world. Not as dangerous as some. We didn't have the extreme gravity or the toxic atmosphere that other species survived, but it was dangerous enough. There were predators everywhere. Creatures bigger than us, faster than us, stronger than us. By all logic, we should have been food. But you survived. We did more than survive." Chen's voice was flat, empty of emotion. "We killed them, all of them. Every predator that threatened us, we hunted down and destroyed. Not because we had claws or fangs or armor. Because we could think. Because we could plan. Because we could work together in ways that no other species on our planet could match." She held up her hands. These hands. These soft, weak hands. They made tools. They made weapons. They made traps and poisons and fire. And they kept making them until nothing was left that could threaten us. "That is not unusual," Kraveth said. "Many species rose to dominate their home worlds. Yes, but most species stopped there." Chen's eyes met his. "We didn't. When we ran out of predators to kill, we started killing each other." The washroom was very quiet. "War," Chen continued. "That's what we called it. We invented a word for organized murder because we did it so often. We didn't fight for food or territory, not always. Sometimes we fought because of ideas. Because one group believed something different than another group. Because someone looked different or spoke different or prayed to different gods." She laughed softly. "We invented religion, and then we invented killing each other over religion. Many species have conflicts, not like ours." Chen stood up and walked to the mirror again. She looked at her reflection, at the paint that made her look savage, at the eyes that held thousands of years of violence. "We didn't just fight wars, Sergeant. We perfected them. We invented siege warfare surrounding a city and waiting until everyone inside starved to death. We invented torture causing pain without killing, making it last as long as possible. We invented genocide, killing every member of a group until none remained." She turned back to face Kraveth. "We dropped weapons on our own cities that could destroy everything for miles in a single flash. We built enough of those weapons to burn our entire planet to ash. Twice. We kept building more." Kraveth's secondary eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of deep disturbance in the Vorn. "Why? Why would any species do this to itself? Because we're good at it." Chen's voice was barely above a whisper. "Because there's something in us, something old. Something from before we were even human that loves the hunt, that loves the kill, that feels most alive when it's destroying something else." She sat down again, suddenly exhausted. "We almost wiped ourselves out, multiple times. We came so close to extinction that our species carries the memory of it in our genes. We have nightmares about it, even those of us who have never studied history. We dream about fire and death and the end of everything. Because some part of us remembers. But you survived. We learned. Chen looked down at her hands again. We learned that if we didn't change, we would die. All of us. So we invented something new. We invented kindness. We invented diplomacy. We invented rules and laws and treaties and all the things that keep us from doing what we want to do. She looked up at Kravith with eyes that were very old and very tired. The smiles, Sergeant. The politeness. The way we apologize when we bump into people. The way we help each other, even when it costs us. All of that, all of it is artificial. It's a cage we built to contain what we really are. What you saw in the arena today. Kravith was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was different than Chen had ever heard it. Softer, almost uncertain. You chose to let that out, he said. You could have lost. You could have let the Kreth defeat you. Instead, you chose to show everyone what humans really are. You gave us an order, Chen replied. You required brutality. You took away our excuse to be kind. She smiled, and there was no warmth in it. We've been waiting for 3 months for someone to tell us we could stop pretending. We've been exhausted from holding ourselves back. When you gave us permission, she trailed off, looking at her reflection in the mirror. It felt good, she admitted. That's the worst part. Letting it out felt good, like taking off heavy armor that I'd been wearing my whole life. She shook her head. That's what scares me, Sergeant. Not the Kreth, not the other species. What scares me is how much I wanted to keep going. How much all of us wanted to keep going. Kravith studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that Chen had never seen a Vorn do to a member of a lower-ranked species. He sat down next to her. The other cadets are afraid of your people now, he said. They should be. Will that make you dangerous? Chen thought about the question. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the academy cadets moving through corridors, instructors calling orders, the eternal hum of a military institution. At work, somewhere in that noise were her fellow humans, probably sitting in silence, probably struggling with the same thing she was struggling with. No, she finally said. Fear doesn't make us dangerous. Nothing does, really. We're always dangerous. We've been dangerous since before we came down from the trees. Then what makes you safe? Chen looked at him with something that might have been respect. It was the first intelligent question anyone at the academy had ever asked her about humans. Choice, she said. We choose to be safe. Every day, every hour, every moment, we choose not to be what we really are. That's all that stands between us and what you saw in that arena. She stood up and walked toward the door. I hope, she said without looking back, that the galaxy never gives us a reason to stop choosing. A week passed after the combat trials. The academy continued its routines, training sessions, evaluations, the endless process of turning recruits into soldiers. But something had changed. Everyone could feel it, even if no one wanted to talk about it directly. The humans were different now. Not in how they behaved, they still smiled, still apologized when they bumped into others, still helped each other and anyone else who needed help. But the other species looked at them differently. When a human walked down a corridor, other cadets stepped aside. When a human entered a room, conversations paused. When a human spoke, others listened. It was not respect, exactly. It was something closer to the way small animals behave around predators that have decided not to hunt. Chen noticed this change but tried not to let it affect her. She went to her training sessions. She attended her classes. She ate her meals in the mess hall, surrounded by her fellow humans, surrounded by the silence of species that no longer knew what to make of them. Thex had been released from the medical bay after 3 days. His limbs had been repaired. Modern medical technology could fix almost anything short of death, but something in him had not healed. Chen saw him sometimes, across the training grounds, watching her with eyes that held questions he would never ask. She understood. She had looked into those same eyes in the mirror. On the 8th day after the trials, Chen received a message on her personal communicator. It was from Kravith. One word. Come. She found him in his office, a small room in the administration building filled with medals and weapons from 100 different worlds. He was standing by the window, looking out at the training grounds where cadets practiced combat forms under the red light of the twin suns. Close the door, he said without turning around. She did. I have submitted my report on the human cadets, he continued. Normally such reports are simple, pass or fail, ready for service or not ready. He turned to face her. Your report was not simple. Chen remained silent, waiting. I have recommended that all 12 human cadets graduate with honors. Kravith walked to his desk and picked up a data tablet. I have also submitted a classified addendum to the Academy Command and to the Compact Military Council. What does it say? Kravith looked at her for a long moment. Then he handed her the tablet. She read it slowly. The words were careful, precise, written with the skill of someone who had spent a lifetime translating violence into language. But the meaning was clear. You're warning them about us, she said. I am informing them of what I observed. Kravith took the tablet back. There is a difference. Is there? He set the tablet down on his desk. When I was young, younger than you are now, my planet was invaded. The Kreth, as it happens. They saw our world and they wanted it, and they had the power to take it. The war lasted 7 years. I lost my entire family, my entire community, nearly my entire species. Chen said nothing. This was not something she had expected. We survived, Kravith continued. We became strong. We became warriors. We joined the Compact and proved ourselves in battle after battle until no one questioned our right to exist. He paused. I thought I understood what war was. I thought I understood what violence was. I thought I understood what survival meant. He walked toward her until they were face to face. I was wrong. You showed me that I was wrong. In that arena, I saw something that I have never seen in all my years of training soldiers from across the galaxy. I saw a species that was not fighting to survive. I saw a species that was holding back from doing worse. Sergeant, the Kreth would have killed you if they could. Kravith interrupted. They were trying to kill you. They held nothing back. And your people, your soft, small, clawless people, did not just defeat them. You chose to let them live. That was the most frightening thing I have ever witnessed. Chen understood what he was saying. It was the truth that she had been trying not to think about. In the arena, at any moment, any of the humans could have killed their opponents. They had the position, the opportunity, the ability. They had chosen not to. They had chosen to break and hurt and terrify, instead of destroy. That choice was what made them human, and that choice was what made them terrifying. In my report, Kravith said, I wrote that humans should be treated with extreme caution. Not because you are dangerous, every species is dangerous, but because you understand your own danger. You know exactly what you are capable of, and you spend every moment of every day choosing not to be that thing. He walked back to the window. The training grounds below were emptying as the day's exercises ended. The Compact has lasted for 6,000 years, he continued. It has survived wars and plagues and catastrophes that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. It has survived because its members understand the rules. The strong dominate. The weak submit or die. Violence is the foundation of all order. He turned to face her one last time. Humans do not follow those rules. You could dominate if you chose to. I have seen the proof of that now. But you choose not to. You choose kindness. You choose diplomacy. You choose to lift up the fallen and help the weak. He shook his head slowly. That is not weakness. That is something far more dangerous. That is self-control. That is a species that has mastered its own nature instead of being mastered by it. Chen thought about what he was saying. She thought about her species, scattered across the stars now, building relationships with alien civilizations, offering peace to worlds that had known nothing but war. She thought about how hard it was, every single day, to be what they had chosen to be, instead of what they were born to be. We're not special, she said finally. We're not better than other species. We're just different. We had to become different, or we would have destroyed ourselves. Yes, Kravith nodded slowly. That is what I wrote in my report. Humans are not a warrior species. You are something else. Something that the Compact has never seen before. Something that we do not have a word for. What word would you use? He considered this for a long moment. Survivors, he said, but not survivors of external threats. Survivors of yourselves. You are a species that looked into its own darkness and decided to build a light instead of surrendering to it. He walked to the door and opened it. Your graduation ceremony is in 3 days, he said. You and your fellow humans have earned your place in the galactic military. But more than that, you have earned my respect. And you have earned my warning to the rest of the galaxy. What warning? Kravith looked at her with those yellow eyes. ancient and knowing. Be kind to the humans, he said. Not because they are weak. Not because they will not fight back. Be kind to them because kindness is the cage they built to contain what they really are. And if that cage ever breaks, if the galaxy ever gives them a reason to stop being kind, then nothing will survive what comes next. He stepped aside to let her pass. The kindness is not the weakness, he said as she walked by. The kindness is the warning. Chen walked out of his office and into the corridor beyond. The academy stretched around her, filled with species that had conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations. Species that thought they understood power. Species that thought they understood violence. They didn't understand. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She smiled a human smile, showing teeth, a gesture that every other species had learned to read as friendliness. And it was friendly. It was warm. It was kind. But underneath that smile was something else. Something old. Something patient. Something that had been waiting since before humans were humans. Since before they came down from the trees. Since before they picked up the first stone and realized what they could do with it. The kindness was real. The smile was genuine. The choice to be good was made every moment of every day. But the other thing was real too. It was always there, always waiting, always ready. And the galaxy, Chen thought as she walked back toward the human barracks, should be very, very grateful that humans kept choosing to smile, because the day they stopped smiling would be the last day for a lot of things. She found her fellow humans waiting for her in the common room. Morrison looked up as she entered. "How did it go?" he asked. Chen thought about Kravith's report. She thought about his warning. She thought about all the species out there in the darkness between stars. Species that had no idea what they were dealing with. Species that saw human kindness and thought it meant weakness. "It went fine," she said, and she smiled. And somewhere deep inside her, something ancient smiled back. 3 days later, 12 humans graduated from the Galactic Military Academy with the highest honors ever awarded to a new species. They went on to serve with distinction across the galaxy, known everywhere for their kindness, their diplomacy, and their willingness to help anyone in need. The classified section of their files, however, contained a single note that would be read by military commanders for generations to come. "Do not provoke. The kindness is not weakness. The kindness is the cage." And for thousands of years afterward, no one ever forgot that warning. No one was ever foolish enough to test it.